Shut up and sit down.
This is the Uncensored Voice. No bullshit, just real shit.
Discussing things that will stir the pot. Only here on the Uncensored Voice.
With your host, Ricky Midnight.
Hey guys, this is Ricky Midnight. Welcome to the Uncensored Voice. My main inspiration for actually getting on podcasts and making podcasts was this man you're going to hear right now. His name's Paul Harvey. I grew up listening to this man. I listened to him whenever I'd go over to my aunt's house. She would usually watch us for the summers while my parents would go on vacation, gallivanting, whatever they did. She would usually watch us for the summers, and boy, I loved listening to him. I'd sit in the back of the car, she's driving around, or I'd be sitting in her house while she's drinking coffee just at the kitchen table. We're just sitting there listening to Paul Harvey. And usually he'd go on about 3 to 10 minutes of his, whatever subject he's on. Kind of like my last two podcasts. I just stuck to one subject on each podcast, and they were fairly short. That's what Paul Harvey did. And just listen to him. His voice was great. I loved listening to his voice. And his scripts were just accurate as can be. And I just, he's my inspiration. I liked him. In this particular one, he's going to talk about policemen. And I know it's called police people now, or police persons. But back when I was a kid, it was called policemen, whether you're a female or male. You could call police women, you can call them a policewoman, right? Angie Dickinson was policewoman, right? But it was just policemen. And he's going to talk about that. And you're going to just listen to it. It's about 3.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes and 20 seconds, something like that. Listen to Paul Harvey. Listen to everything he says, and you'll kind of get an insight as to what an actual police officer is. How do I know this? Because I was actually a police officer. And I joined the police force simply because I wanted to be that cop who wasn't the jerk, who didn't want to show off to his buddies, hey, I have a gun on my hip. Didn't want to walk around with authority like, hey, look at me, I'm Mr. Badass. I didn't want to be that kind of cop. I wanted to be the kind of cop that's, hey, look at that cop. He's not a jerk like the other ones. He's a pretty cool guy. Let's listen to him. That's the kind of cop I wanted to be. The kind of cop that gives an example to all the other assholes out there. Not necessarily dirty cops, just assholes who are happy that they have that badge because they get the authority to tell people what to do. Yes, I had the authority, but you don't have to display it all the time. That's not who you are as a person. At least not who I was as a person. So that's the reason why I joined. I wanted to become a police officer to show that I don't have to be that kind of people. And I wasn't the kind of cop who pulled cars over just to give them a ticket or just to ruin their day. I pulled over several cars because every Friday my sergeant made me pull over cars. But you know what? Not one of those cars did I give a ticket to other than a warning, because that's just not who I am. And they were just for rolling through a stop sign. So and it was at night. It was 2 a.m, 1 a.m. There's nobody around. Yeah, it's against the law, but you got to kind of weigh it. As a police officer in the state of Texas, and I'm sure for most all the other states, you have to weigh the situation. You don't have to follow the strictest letter of the law. You weigh the situation. There's only a couple of times, at least in the state of Texas, where you have to do the strictest thing in the law that it can possibly be. It's called shall. Shall. That's what it says in the actual law books. You shall make an arrest for a violation of a protective order in your presence, while in your presence, right? So there's only a few shalls in the books on the state of Texas. Everything other than that is left up to your judgment. And in my judgment, you don't have to be a jerk. So let me let you listen to Paul Harvey.
Policeman. A policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. Culled statistics, wave the fan over stinkers, underscore instances of dishonesty and brutality because they are news. What that really means is that they are exceptional, they are unusual, they are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact. And the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform. And that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted. A strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won, but if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer, but if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limp or expect to be sued. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. A policeman must know everything and not tell. He must know where all of the sin is and not partake. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding, but if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. If he gets promoted, he has political pull. If he doesn't, he's a dullard. The policeman must chase bum leads to a dead end, stake out 10 nights to tag one witness who saw it happen but refuses to remember. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who will get dealed out by a shameless Seamus or an honorable who isn't honorable. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And, of course, he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
Now, keep this in mind, folks. An average police officer's salary is between $40,000 and $60,000 a year. At where I used to work, I was actually getting paid a little bit less than that. I think I was getting paid about $38,000. But that's the average. Now, SAPD is one of the top paid in Texas. I think they're making upwards of $60,000 a year to just be a regular patrolman. But that's about the average right now. This is 2021, so that's about the average right now. So now you kind of get an insight of what it's like for a police officer to be a police officer. And yes, they're not the most highly paid people out there. In my opinion, a police officer should get paid more than a guy running around in tights reaching for other guys' balls. Football player. There's no way anybody in a damn sports team who isn't risking their lives to save other people's lives should get paid more than someone who does, whether it be a police officer or a fireman or someone in the military. You should not, in theater, not just in the military, but in military and theater, you should never get paid more than them. For I don't care what you do, whether you be an actor like Gary Busey or Harrison Ford or anybody else, you should never get paid more than those who give of themselves, who risk their lives away from their families to make sure that you're protected. They should never get paid more than them. So anyway, this is Ricky Midnight, proudly on Poison. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Thanks for listening to The Uncensored Voice.
Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And remember, on The Uncensored Voice, we tell it like it is.
So be safe, my friends, and may God bless America.